So it's really no surprise at this point. If you want to buy games on PC, you pretty much have one and one only choice. It's going to be Steam. Everyone knows you pretty much buy all your games on Steam. There are some different circumstances, like if you want to buy games from EA, you have to go to EA's Origin client on PC to download their games. Or for instance, if you want to download Blizzard games, you have to use the Blizzard client to download Blizzard properties for playing Blizzard games because they don't want to use Steam. But 99% of the time on PC, you are going to be buying most of your games on PC, on Steam, whether we're talking about big AAA releases or we're talking about indie games and things like that. Most things are going to be bought on Steam, but it looks like heading on into the near future, that may be changing quite a bit, just because if you know, sometime last year, Epic Games actually released their own client on PC to download games. It's called the Epic Game Store, and the Epic Game Store just came to be a thing, and they're trying to actually kind of compete with Steam in a big way. The main difference between the Epic Games client and the Steam store is the fact that the Epic Games Store on PC actually allows developers to take a bigger percent of their cut when it comes to their video games. So if they make more money on their video games, Epic Games Store actually takes less money from the developers of a game compared to Steam. I'm not quite sure what the different numbers are, but I do know Epic Games is much more less, so they take less out of the developer's pocket. So basically what it means is the people who go to the Epic Game Store are going to be making more money on their video game than they would with Steam. Now, ever since Epic Game Store actually came out on the PC, Steam and Valve finally realized, we know that there's some competition in town, so they actually changed it to make sure that developers on Steam, if they put their game on Steam, make a little bit more money. It used to be a little bit less money, but now it's a little bit more money in the developer's pocket because they know people may be moving to the Epic Game Store to actually publish their game or put their game on PC because the developer will get more money. Kind of makes sense, but it looks like that there's actually going to be another AAA game coming to the Epic Game Store. Actually, I don't even think we've had a big major AAA game come to the Epic Game Store. I think there's been some hit or miss small type of indie games go on the Epic Game Store, but now the Epic Game Store has a big major release moving away from Steam, and that's actually surprising because Steam's been around for so many years. It's pretty much been the go-to place on PC to download games, so for such a big game to move over to Epic Game Store is actually kind of a shock. Another thing Epic Game Store really has going, not really much show for the developers, but much show for the users or for the people who play games, is the fact that if you download the Epic Game Store, you actually get free games on there. Yes, you do get free games. They're not super big games. They're not these big AAA games. They do throw out these indie games and these different releases. They kind of pretty much entice you to download the Epic Game Store. I do know, I think on EA Origin, they used to give out free games. I don't know if they still give out free games on the EA's Origin client, but they used to give out free games just like Epic did with the Epic Game Store. But the big game that's actually going to be moving away from Steam and moving to the Epic Game Store is actually going to be the new Division 2 from Ubisoft. It looks like Ubisoft is going to be moving their game over to the Epic Game Store, so you won't be able to get it on day one on PC, on Steam. If you have Steam downloaded, you're going to have to actually go ahead and download Epic's launcher and download Epic Game Store to actually download that game. It's kind of a surprise to me. A big AAA game wants to move away from Steam and move to the Epic Game Store, but hey, I get it. You have to go wherever the money is, and if it's going to make you more money on there, then you have to go there. I don't really blame Ubisoft for putting their game on there instead of putting it on Steam, because they want to make as much money on this game as they possibly can. Honestly, it's kind of interesting to see how many more developers out there are actually going to move their game away from Steam and move their game to the Epic Game Store, because if the cut's better, of course, they're going to go there. It just really makes me wonder. And it's also good competition for Steam, because now Steam and Valve pretty much have to figure out what they're going to do to entice developers to stay on their platform. And this could mean bad things in the near future. Is it going to happen anytime soon? No, probably not, because there's a big reputation for Steam. Steam's been around so many years, and so many developers know about it. A lot of developers may not even be aware of the Epic Game Store. A lot of people don't even use the Epic Game Store. Some devs may say, well, we're getting a bigger cut on Epic Game Store if you put our game on there, but the fan base or the user base on that's probably still not as big as Steam, since Steam's been around for decades now, so that some developers may still be iffy to put their game on there because they know that the user base is not that big on there. But this could mean trouble for Steam if Steam doesn't figure out how to get their developers or keep developers on Steam. I guess what they could do is give more developers on Steam a bigger cut when it comes to video games, or they could try other different tactics to keep people on Steam. This could mean bad things. Do I want Steam to go out of business? Of course not. I don't want Steam to go out of business. Actually, competition is good for one reason. Competition is actually good because it actually is good for the users. Pretty much in return, the users get what they want, so we're going to get better stuff and things like that. So it's always good. Competition is always good, and I don't want to see anyone go out of business. That means Steam is just going to have to try a little bit harder in the near future to actually make sure devs stay on Steam and things like that. It's just interesting that a big release like Ubisoft's The Division 2 is not going to be on Steam anymore. It's actually going to be on Epic Game Store, which is kind of interesting. And of course, not really surprised that Epic Games could do all this because they have a lot of money. You should realize how much money they racked in due to Fortnite. Fortnite pretty much gave them a lot of money, so they can pretty much entice developers however they want because they're not really worried about how much cut, I guess, they get from some of these developers on the Epic Game Store, since Fortnite is racking in so much money on them. I guess there's really two ways you could go about playing the new Division 2 when it actually comes out. You could use the Epic Game Store, or you could use Uplay. But who really uses Uplay to actually play games on their PC? Usually what happens is I like to download my games on Steam, even if it's an Ubisoft game, and then have to download the additional Uplay client, just because I like having all my games on Steam in the first place. I don't want to have to rely on it, even though it does kind of suck. You end up having to download Uplay anyway. But overall, this is just some interesting news about how the new Division 2 game is going to be moving away from the Steam client and moving to the Epic Games client. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out. Peace.